Hello, hello. Hi, guys. I'm so excited to see you. All right, those of you who are joining, if you would, please, let me know if you can hear me. Shoot me a chat. Give me a thumbs up or a yes. I would really appreciate that. Not getting any messages. Can y'all hear me? We'll see. We will see what happens here. Hey, Eric, thank you so much. I get a little panicky about the technological issues. No one could hear me. It's like, well, then what do I do from there? All right, you guys. Hello. I'm gonna wait a couple of minutes to see, give people some time. We're not all the most prompt of individuals, right? And I have a fun fact. Anyone who happens to like Scotch, which I really do, did you know that Laphroaig, if you buy a bottle of Laphroaig whiskey, they will give you a, like, rent out a lifetime square foot of land in Scotland? That shouldn't make me want to go to Scotland, but it really does. I want to go stand on my square foot of Scotland that I'm renting. Just a fun fact if you ever wanted to rent land. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Got 3 of you guys. That is all that I need. Today, we're talking about clarity, and I probably need to find a better way to describe it, because clarity seems to be this really not a whole lot. You say clarity and they're like, okay, everybody talks about clarity. The reason that I thought this was so important is that sometimes I think there are 5 reasons that we don't take a lot of action, and one of them is that we're not clear and we don't even realize that's what's going on. Hey, Kelly. So I wanted to talk about clarity today, and I wanted to give you guys the ability to get really clear at any point in your day, at any point in your year, about whatever you want to get clear about. That sounds like a superpower. It's totally achievable for you. But I do want to preface this webinar with the idea that I've got too much in it, okay? I'm putting too much out there. And the reason that I say that is so that you don't try to, like, soak it all up and use all of it and, like, squeeze all the juice out of this. What I want you guys to think about doing is latch on to 1 or 2 ideas that are new or, like, refreshing to you, and use those as you move forward. I also want to let you know that this is the first of 5 webinars, so I'm going to be addressing each of the 5 problems that I see with those of us who don't take action. And this is the first one, so there are going to be more coming up. And I may reference them because a few times I'm going to leave you hanging, like, okay, that's a different kind of problem. So let's get started with what clarity even is. And if you know the things that I tell you, bear with me, because I want to make sure everybody gets this. It's very important. Clarity is an emotion. And an emotion is a physical sensation in your body, in your physical body. Emotions, we kind of treat them like these magical things. We don't know where they are. They're roughly in our heart. We don't know. Maybe they're in our mind. We don't know. What an emotion is a little flag that tells you, hey, by the way, you just had a thought about something, and the vibration is happening in your body to cue you into the fact that you're having a thought. Emotions come from your thinking 100% of the time. Your reaction to the world around you. So the world around you does not make you feel anything. The way that you think and make meaning of the world around you is what causes that. So clarity is an emotion that's going to be coming from thoughts in your own mind. It does not come. We think that clarity comes from taking enough time to think, or that clarity comes from getting enough of the right information, right? Or clarity comes from stumbling upon the right, path forward for you. And none of those is correct. Clarity is going to always come from your thinking. Confusion also comes from your thinking. And more specifically, clarity comes from your decisions, which can trigger some of us. I'm going to talk more about how growing up with ADHD diagnosed or undiagnosed, even if you didn't know you had it, can really impact your confidence in your decision making, and therefore your clarity. If you cannot confidently make decisions, you will be unclear a lot of the time, and that sucks. I hate feeling unclear. Okay, so clarity comes from decisions. It also comes from good questions, but good questions help us make decisions. So ultimately, it is decisions long term. Oh, real fast. Should have let you know this. If you have questions for me about what I'm talking about, go ahead and put them in the chat box. If we get, we don't have a whole lot of people, so you should be able to put them in the chat box and I'll read them and maybe answer on the go. Okay, so if you're like, wait a minute, back up, what you just said, I don't know what you're talking about, shoot me a question and we'll slow down. We'll also answer questions at the end. So we all have, well, hold on, let me give you an example. Do I want to give you an example? Have you guys noticed this happening? Like, if once you've made a decision, you feel much more clear. Anybody notice that happening? Decisions do interesting things to us. An example of this would be like, once I've decided, okay, I'm taking my toddlers, we're going outside today, we're going to go to the park. Now, suddenly the steps that I need to take are much more clear to me. And I know that I feel clear because my body feels lighter, it feels sharper. I feel like the physical sensations that I experience with clarity are like a lightness in my limbs, my heart kind of lifting upwards, a little upwards motion, maybe expanding is what it feels like to me physically. And you may not have spent a lot of time feeling clarity in your body. It'd be an interesting experiment to do, to make a decision and then check in. How does my body actually feel right now? Can't remember where I was going with that, so we'll keep going. Okay, so we all have unconscious parameters for making decisions. We make decisions in this pretty much the same way, at least for different categories every time. And the parameters for how we make a decision are currently, unless you have done this work before, currently unconscious. So if you will, I would love a little interaction from you guys. How do you make a decision? Like, what are some of the steps? If you think about it now, like, how do I decide something? I mean, and it kind of depends on small versus large, but just go with whatever your gut says. Here's how I make a decision. I want to hear something from someone. I've misplaced my coffee. It's okay. I will make it. If you guys don't want to chat with me, that's okay. But I'm going to give you a few more seconds. Talk it out. Yeah. Research, look, try, decide. Perfect. Gather lots of information. Yeah. Okay, so those are parameters. These are ways that you're going to make decisions, and you'll find when you look at different decisions you've made in your life that you'll do a pretty similar thing. A lot of us gained the parameters that we have, gather lots of information, then pay attention to what resonates with me. Cool. A lot of us gained our parameters as children or young adults, and ADHD played a role in that. And often what I see, you guys, if this is not your experience, let me know. Like, this was not what I went through. But a lot of us, as we're growing and getting the more freedom to make decisions, we start to make decisions in a really reactionary way as children and young adults. We're either reacting to our own emotions, which, as I mentioned earlier, our emotions come from our thoughts. So depending on what we're thinking, that's how we will feel, and then we make these decisions based on that. But if we don't know what we're thinking and we're making decisions based on emotions, then we're making them in a really unconscious way. We don't have a lot of control over that. Another way that we tend to make decisions with ADHD is based on what other people think is urgent or whatever's happening around us. So again, that's outside of us. We don't have control over that. The point where this all gets very, very easy to control and guide your own clarity is when you start to pay attention to what you're thinking and consciously decide what to think, what to feel, and then what to do from there. It's a much more powerful place to make a decision. But a lot of us, like, how many of you feel like you're good decision makers? I'm curious. Melanie says no. How about the rest of you guys? Good decision maker? Do you trust yourself to make decisions? Depends on the thing. Okay. Let's make it, how about for like spending lots of money? Can you be trusted to make a decision about spending lots of money? The reason I go there is that money is just a value holder. So it's like, can you be trusted with something that is very valuable? I have an ability to make good decisions for material things. There's a lot of like good decisions for material things from Eric. Tell me more about that, Eric. I would love to hear. I have an ability to make good decisions for material things. Kelly, not so much. I look to others for confirmation on the big stuff. Yeah. If you guys are still typing, go ahead and keep typing. But I think that's what I see across the board, right? I can trust myself for these little decisions that don't really affect other people much. I still need to hear from Eric because there's a lot of qualifiers. But the big decisions, I can buy a car the same day I start looking. Yeah, you might. Okay, this is good. We'll be asking you about your process a little bit more. Hold on, derailed myself. Talking about decisions. A lot of us don't feel like we can trust ourselves with the big stuff. And it's interesting to like think about a big stuff as far as money, but also big stuff as far as what you're going to do with your life, right? Like how do I make these decisions about what I want and what I'm going to do? If you're not clear on those things, you will have a hard time taking action. I do not do well with clarity on tasks and work. Okay, good. I'm going to write that down because I want to make sure we come back to that. So you're okay with the car buying, but not with the tasks. I have an idea about that. Okay. The interesting thing about that is, so your parameters for deciding whether or not to buy a car may not be the same as deciding what to do with your tasks, right? You'll have a parameter, you'll have questions you ask yourself, you'll have a way of gathering research, and then you feel very confident in yourself. As far as what to do with your tasks, the parameters for those decisions, not as ironclad. And that would be a place to start paying attention, right? Like, why can I make a decision so well over here, but with the tasks, not so much? And a lot of us make tasks the same way that a child would decide what to do with their day, based on how we feel at that moment, but we're not deciding how to feel. So it's like, it's completely up in the air. I'll decide how to do my tasks based on one of a couple things. Either I'm not a scheduler, so I maybe write down a list and then I hopefully feel like doing the things on the list, but if not, I'm in trouble. Or I will schedule myself and then I will hopefully feel like following through. Shoot me a thumbs up if that's your experience, or give me more details. So it's good to pay attention. It's actually really useful to pay attention to the areas in your life where you make decisions well and quickly, where you trust yourself. What are those parameters? And what are the decision-making parameters for other areas of your life? The decision-making parameters that I have, Kelly, that's so me. Yeah. Actually, that's for anything that you will find yourself saying, I don't do this well. I'm not organized. I'm not this. I don't that. It's a really useful coaching question to flip that around and say, but where am I organized? But where do I make good decisions? But where am I super clear? Always, anytime you find yourself cutting off an entire, chunk of your life or yourself, you want to flip that around and ask, okay, well, let's just assume, right, that the opposite is also true. Where is that true? Lily says, yes, I often jump in with a big decision that I'm happy with, and then I have feelings of panic. We are going to talk about that. because that's a huge deal, right? It's a huge deal when after we've made a decision, then we come back and we question ourselves. It's a huge deal if a decision has a result that was not what we planned, and then we, beat ourselves up for it, or other people beat us up. Hopefully not physically, but emotionally it's just as damaging sometimes. Yeah, okay. So some of the like if you start to notice where you have parameters that work for you and then apply them to other areas, that's an interesting experiment for you to do. The parameters that I tend to have are to decide how much time I'm going to spend on a decision. Like, we go to the restaurant, we sit down, I have 10 minutes because I don't get to go out very often, and I'm here to talk with my friends, and I'm not wasting my time scanning through this menu. If I'm by myself, then I give myself like 45 minutes to meander. But the time can change. Every time I decide I have a decision to make, I'm going to decide how long do I get to decide on this, right? If it's a move, maybe we have a year to decide whether we move. Maybe we have a month to decide. My husband and I have been purchasing real estate, and it's sometimes you have like a very short amount of time in this market. Like, do you want it or not? Are we going to take on all of the problems this house might have or not? So we have 24 hours and we set that parameter, and then we go forward from there. I don't think I wrote down the notes on that one. What are the other? I had more parameters. Oh, what do I need to know? I have notes on the ground. I'm going to keep looking at them. How long do I have in total to make this decision? What do I need to know? When will I think about it? Like, if I'm going to think and gather information, when will I do that? And then who, if anyone, has the right to challenge or doubt this decision? Those are my parameters. I make those decisions every time I have a call to make. And a lot of times I'm so practiced in this now that I don't spend a whole lot of time doing that. But if it's a decision that comes in from out of nowhere, I might have to sit down and go, okay, how long do I have to figure this out? When I decide, right, once I've answered those questions, how long do I get? What is the deadline? When will I think about this or gather information? What do I need? When I make those decisions, I am much more clear on moving forward with the bigger decision that I have to make. But a lot of the times you will find out that the answers are somewhat arbitrary. The answers to the questions you will ask yourself are arbitrary. There's not a right or a wrong. And I want to offer that you still get to make decisions, and you still should make decisions. You should make them arbitrarily, and you should make them pretty firmly, and you should go with it. The reason for that is because then you get to experience clarity, and clarity produces action. And taking action that you will then learn from is integral to making progress in any goal at all. If you're not like, I've landed at the life that I want and I'm just going to keep it here, that's not where you are. If you have more that you want to do and create and improve, then you're going to want to be taking action, and action requires the emotions that prompt it. Clarity is a good one. So making decisions arbitrarily, if that's what's required, and often it is, right? Because often what we want to know, this is where like the need versus want. What we want to know is, will this work out in a way that makes me happy? Give me a thumbs up if that's like what you're trying to do with your decisions, right? Will this make me happy? That's the question we're asking ourselves. We don't know, so we're confused. So we don't make that decision. And that is not a question that I ask myself. I do not spend almost any time asking whether or not this decision will make me happy. And there's a reason for that I can discuss. But is that how's this hitting you guys? Is this ringing true? Spend a lot of time trying to figure out whether or not your decision will result in good emotions from you or from somebody else. Yeah, If my gut feels nervous, I delay or decline the decision. Eric, think of a time that your gut is feeling nervous. Like, what would you be worried might happen? Right? What's that nervousness focused around? What's the outcome? That it's like, hey, but be aware this outcome could happen, right? Because our anxiety and our nerves are always like, oh no, this might happen. That's what they're always pointed towards what could occur. And if you experience nervousness and don't explore what your brain thinks might happen, you're letting a biological it's like it's what keeps you from running over cliffs. It's like, hey, that could be a cliff right there. Let's slow down. We can't see. Like, that's very useful, but it also throws out scenarios that can be very, very interesting, very wild. Anybody else hold off on decisions because you are worried? You're trying to make sure that you get the one. Got to make the decision that makes me to feel the best, right? I would hate to make a decision that makes me feel bad or someone else feels bad. Maybe this is new for you guys. Have you not thought about this before? Let me know if I need to. I think I might spend a little time here. Shoot me a message if you don't want me to stop here. I never had anxiety or worry unless it was work related. Anxiety sucks. I would lump nervousness in that anxiety department. They're highly related, right? Your nerves are your brain telling you there could be danger and then getting ready to do something about it, right? So when we get nervous, oh yeah. Hold on, I'll come back to Aline. So like your nerves, you can literally feel your body getting worked up and ready to move. And that's kind of in that anxiety arena. And I'm not talking about big A anxiety, like diagnosable, you need medication or you might want medication. I'm talking about little A anxiety, the emotion that we all experience. And it's a very forward, like this bad thing might happen to you, be careful. So Aline says, pardon me if I'm mispronouncing that, says, yes, but more like I should be doing something else more important. Is this truly the most important thing? Yeah, so if you were doing the most important thing, Aline, hit me up with an answer here. If you were doing the most important thing and you knew that, how would you feel? Yeah. I think this is useful for everybody. If you were doing the most important thing, you're making decisions and you're pausing to make sure you're doing the most important thing. If you were, how would you feel? I know I'm doing the most important thing. How does that make you feel? What emotion? In the zone. If you're doing the most important thing, you get to get in the zone. Satisfied, fulfilled. Yeah. Those are good, right? Okay, so if you're not doing the most important thing, how would you feel? Distracted. Oh, you guys, this is so good. Hopeless and a failure. Yeah, right? Distracted, hopeless. But those are awful, right? Okay, how would you know? This is important. How would you know that you're not doing the most important thing? At what point would you know that? So I have a guess that I want to see. I still have undone priorities long after when I realize I forgot something. Yeah. Okay, good. So undone priorities. Or forgot something. So this idea of something's not finished. Now, when you're worried about doing the most important thing, do you still have undone priorities after you've done that? When you put off the decision because you're trying to make sure you do the important thing? Yes, always. Okay, hold on to that information. Kelly, do you ever forget something after you've put off a decision because you're trying to do the most important thing or the best thing, right? Sometimes our brain, I want to do the right thing. I want to do the best thing. I want to do the one that matters the most today. I want to do the one that'll like make the day go really well or make the week go really well. When we don't decide, when we wait a long time to decide because we're trying to do the right thing, do you still forget? You still leave things unfolded? Yeah. And sometimes it's about timing. Okay, so everybody pay attention to this. If you put off your decision about what to do, you still forget. Yeah, it piles up with the rest. You still forget things. Sometimes it's about timing. Sometimes you can't anticipate the timing. You still have undone priorities, but you spent a bunch of time on the decision. And you spent a bunch of time feeling confused about that decision. And you spent a bunch of time building your lack of trust or degrading your self-trust, right? If you start to be someone who makes quicker, sometimes, maybe often arbitrary decisions, and add in the technique of stopping to evaluate, you cut out all this useless time. You start to actually figure out what's important. And I know that I was like, oh, but you need to evaluate. Yes, but it starts with making decisions as if you trusted yourself, feeling clear, moving forward, taking action. And then you do want to add a pause at some point in your day or week to go, okay, how did this go? Was that the most important thing that I did? I said it was. I acted like it was. Was it really? You know what? I don't think so. I think next time I will do something different. And suddenly you have more information that you didn't have before. So what we did in this hypothetical situation was, okay, the way we're making decisions is holding off, and waiting to make the decision while we debate, is this the right thing? Is this the most important thing? Is this the right thing? I don't know, because you can't know that. You cannot know that without doing it and evaluating it. So this is one of the reasons that I want you guys to consider. You don't have to jump into this, but consider letting yourself make more decisions much, much faster so that you can take the action, so that you have the data you need. Right? You'll feel clear in the moment. This is what I'm doing. Right? And then you feel clear afterwards. This is what I did that didn't work. This is how I'm going to do this differently. I think I seldom take time to evaluate the day's decisions. It can lead to lots of negative self-talk for me. Yes. And one of the reasons that we don't evaluate is just we've never thought about it. And it seems like it's going to take a lot of time and not do a lot of good. I want to offer that that's totally false. It will change your life. Evaluating will change your life. But another reason is we think we're bad at making decisions. If you're bad at making decisions, it doesn't matter. Like, there's nothing to evaluate. You're just bad. It's just more like, oh, you did it again. I find our past anchors. Hold on a second. Find our past anchors slow down moving forward. When we release, decisions come easier. Yes, I did it again. Kelly, what did you do again? Oh, you're saying, I made that bad decision again, right? I'm pretty sure that's what you're talking about. Yes, I did it again. Okay, so I want to offer that there are no bad decisions, that your decisions have two outcomes. One of them, if you're conscious, okay, if you're conscious, if you're thinking about it, if you're taking the time, planning the time to evaluate these things, your decisions will either A, get you the thing you wanted, or B, teach you something that you need to learn, that you want to learn. In my business, I'm an entrepreneur. I started my business 4 or 5 years ago, and owning a business is like there are a million things that could work. There are people who will tell me exact opposite things, and they're both having thriving businesses, and they say you need to do this, and the other one says you need to do this. There are no right answers. There are 0 right answers. It is all what will work for me, and I can't find that out until I try. But I want to spend a whole lot of time hiding and trying to think it all out. That is not what we need to do, my friends. What we need to do is know that we are going to evaluate this and start taking very decisive action. And that will feel clear when we're committed to seeing it through. It's much easier to see it through as well if you know that you're not going to attack yourself later, which is a connection to self problem. It's a thought problem that we're going to talk about, I hope. Yeah, we got time. Let's pause a minute. Is my baby okay? Sorry, I was going to wear my headphones, but I didn't want to. She is fine. She's with her sitter, but I'll put my headphone in if I can find it. Because she's yelling for me. I work from home, you guys, and I love it. It's the best thing ever. And the one problem is that when my kids have their inevitable tantrums, everybody can hear it unless I'm using my Brittany mic. So allow me. And now she stopped. Do we think that she will stay stopped? I don't want to wear it, so we'll try. Okay, let's all regroup. What questions or thoughts do you have so far? We've talked about clarity as an emotion. We've talked about that's a physical sensation in your body. It helps you take action. Talked about decisions being the thing that create clarity, making a decision about what you want, what you're going to do, the order in which you're going to do it. Those create clarity. Once you have decided, actually decided, like no more questions, this is what we're doing, that is where that clarity will come in. So what questions do you have so far? Okay, keep shooting them up if and when you have them. Oh, we have a question. Sometimes I anticipate conflict from family members and then have to think about how to reply, which takes more time. Yeah, that's interesting. A recommendation that I might have is to think about how you could, like a way that you could reply to anyone at any time. Like, what am I going to do anytime someone wants me to justify my actions, right? Do you have to figure out all the words you will say, or can you trust yourself to hear a problem and respond to the problem? Is that a skill that you have or could build, right? So that you don't need to stop and think, okay, well, when they're mad about this, then I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to say this, right? Do you need, it's a good question, you guys. Do we need to explain everything? Can it be, I made the best choice that I could make at the time, and you're right, there were problems with it. I see those as well. I'm with you. Now we're going to do this. Or what do you think we should do now, right? Like, do we need to explain our thought process and our reasoning every time? We're adults, right? Are we allowed? Good question, right? Are we allowed to make mistakes? Are we allowed to make decisions that we haven't exhaustively thought through? Are we allowed to make the decisions that result in somebody being inconvenienced? Because if we're not, like, why? What human being is not allowed to make mistakes and inconvenience people because they were making decisions in a way that moves them forward? Who took that away from us? We did. Is the answer to that. But Why is the question? Is it even possible? Is it possible to make decisions that don't inconvenience anyone? And notice if you think that waiting to make a decision is not a decision. Like, that's still our choice. How we decide is still our choice. And it's still going to inconvenience someone. And usually the person that inconveniences is you, because you don't get to go have the life you wanted. You don't get to go take a bunch of action, learn, like build something amazing, live up to the potential that you have. Right? So it's fine. It's totally fine to keep living that way. That is not a problem. And in fact, if you decide that that's how you want to live and that's aligned for you, then it's beautiful. And you can like stop wanting to change so much of that. But if you're tired of being the one who's always inconvenienced, the belief that you need to answer for all of your decisions might need to go. That's not something that's supported scripturally, that you need to like exhaustively iron all these things out. Hold on a second. There was a comment that I didn't get to read. And other people, first off, their emotions come from their thinking. So they can be annoyed with you whenever they want, for whatever reason they want. I actually have a good story that illustrates this, and I want to tell it. But real quick, let me read Eric. On my personal family side, I do great with clarity, but the opposite is true for work. Yeah, to choose not to decide. Yeah, so again, Eric, with that, like, notice, oh, I'm super clear over here. What are my parameters and what am I worrying about? Why do I believe I'm able to make a decision with my family? I'm clear, confident, but at work, not so much. That might be something like, we could either maybe coach on it later, or you might like journal on that for yourself and think about, why are these things different? And are the beliefs that I have about them, that they are different, are those true? Are those accurate? Kelly says it's a problem if you're not feeling satisfied. Stuck feeling stinks. Yeah, if you're not feeling satisfied. Okay, good. Notice how the problem, like over and over, it will come back to feelings, ours or someone else's. And we have feelings about other people having feelings too, right? Glad you made it too, girl. Or boy, can't tell. Melissa, okay, girl. Probably, unless you're non-binary. You guys, all of these pronouns, I'm glad that people are being inclusive, but sometimes I get so like, oh no, what do I say now? Working on it. Sorry, sidetrack. ADD. Where were we going? Satisfied. Gosh, thank you for bearing with me. So the thing that we want to think about as far as making decisions, because somewhere in my notes I wrote down, like, we're afraid of making decisions. A lot of that fear comes from how we think we will feel after the decision has been made, after the result of that decision comes in, right? My decision here directly led to this, and now I feel X. And that is, I feel something bad. I'm terrified of making decisions that will make me feel bad later. That's not how we think about it, but see if that's accurate, right? Like, what is the problem of buying a car and not doing the research and finding out it's the wrong car for you? Like, oh, it doesn't fit into our garage. That's inconvenient. How will you feel at that point? Think about a decision that was the wrong one, right? You made the wrong choice. How did you feel? Okay, that is the problem. That is what we're so worried about. And it's useful to know that that emotion is not coming from the decision. It's not coming from the outcome of the decision. It is coming from the way that we habitually think when life is going a way that we don't particularly want it to go. Okay, so if life does something we don't love, and we were directly involved, if we can see our role in that process, then we get really mad at ourselves and we blame ourselves and we say the problem was our decision was not good enough. Yeah. Who is this saying this? My fear is making decisions and not knowing if they're according to what God wants or not. And I either think God spoke, but it doesn't work out, or I feel like he hasn't spoken. Yeah, that's a big one, right? What did I write down? Let's look at notes. The fears around decisions are A, what I will think or feel about myself if this decision has a result that I didn't plan out. If it goes away that I didn't want. B, what other people will think or feel. Oh yeah, good job, Eric. When posting, set your comments to everyone so everybody can read them and you can respond to each other as well. What other people will think or feel and what God will think or feel. That's what we're worried about, right? And most of them come back to my own feelings, right? If God is not happy with my decision, how will I feel? Some of the hold on a second, my brain went 3 different directions. Here's what I want to know first. How do you feel when you believe you've made the wrong decision? Is that where that unsatisfied comes from? Technology, right? How do you feel when you think you've made the wrong decision? Shame, yeah. Like I did a bad thing, I am bad. People are upset and I am the problem. Right? Disappointed, and then okay, knowing it was not done to harm. Shame, I am bad. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Eric, I find it interesting, right? So Eric's answer here, I feel disappointed, right? This is not what I wanted, but then I feel okay. And he has a thought that makes him feel okay, which is I didn't do this to harm. I did this for a good reason. Possibly I did the best I could. But those of us who are feeling shame after a decision comes to fruition, we're saying, no, this should not have happened. I should have known. I should have made a different choice, right? And you notice how that sounds like a parent going, bad, you made a bad decision, right? Now I'm going to punish you. I'm an idiot. I should have known better. I want to offer you guys a thought that you can take on or not, is that you can't know better. You can moving forward. You cannot do better than what you did, right? Any decision that is in the past was the literal best decision you could possibly have made at the time. Because you would have needed more information or more skills, right? You are currently, like in the past, you were operating on a decision-making routine that maybe you need more time. Maybe you need to not make decisions when you're feeling super excited. But if you made decisions in the past from that emotion, you didn't know how to control it. So how on earth could you expect yourself to have done better? But that's what we do. And yes, part of it is programmed in from our parenting. No shame to the parents. They were doing the best they could do, right? But we now have the ability to go, is this how I want to talk to myself? Do I want to tell myself that something that cannot be changed, my skills and choices in the past, is a reason for shame, as opposed to something that I should be like, good job, you made a choice. Here's how we're going to do this differently next time, moving into the future. I want to offer that to all of you, that the shame that we're so afraid of making the wrong decision, that shame comes entirely from us. And it's the way that we think and talk to ourselves, and it doesn't have to. And the lack of, like, knowing there is not shame coming will not make you just like go off the deep end. Or if it does, it won't happen for long. because you get to decide what you do want to think. It's work to change that self-talk. Yeah. But I want to offer this to you as well. What if it's not much work? Do you know how much work it is? And what if it's fun work to do? What if it's empowering work to do? Right? Like, we're going to do work anyway. You're working all day long. You're either working really hard to avoid how you feel and working really hard to not feel the shame of avoiding how you feel, or you're working on something else. Like, work is just what we were put here to do. It requires a lot of awareness and sitting with that emotion. Yeah. And awareness is the #1 tool for any change in any area of your life you ever want to make. #1 always has to happen. Awareness has to happen first. So if this requires a lot of awareness, you'll be building your skill of awareness, and that can only help you. With everything ever from here on. So it's not like, oh, I need to feel a little better about decision. Like, I need to stop. It's going to be a lot of work to cancel out the shame. First off, if you're working on what to if you decide what you're going to think after a decision comes to fruition, you'll decide how you get to feel. And if you would like to feel better, not Pollyanna, not like everything's fine, but like, if you would like to feel grounded and like you have your own back, compassionate, if you would like to feel sharp, clear after that, right? I made a mistake. How do you want to feel after you make a mistake? You get to decide that. Bing, bing. Now we're back to clarity, right? We're back to making decisions. You get to decide what you're going to think about a decision you made, and you can decide that now. And you can shift into that, right? You'll know when you need to shift into it, because you'll feel so awful. You'll feel that shame drenching. Eric, I want to bring you back to that. Eric feels disappointment because he has different talk, and that may have been conscious. It may not have been. But Eric, it'd be useful for you to go, okay, where does it go beyond disappointment? At work, am I doing this at work? Does my talk change at work, and why? Why are my thoughts different there? Because I don't have the same confidence there. This is good, you guys. There was, I forget who it was talking about what God will think and feel. And that's kind of an area that I think, do you have some useful scripture to help with reframing our thoughts? A lot of scripture is useful for reframing your thoughts. And the thing that will, like, I can't just hand you thoughts, I can't just hand you Bible verses, because for any thought to change how you feel, you have to be willing to take it on. Take it on, try it on, put it on. Like, your brain has to go, I will accept that as probably true. And I'm willing to explore. So I can't tell you which Bible verses. Your brain will be like, yes, okay, we can run with that one today. That has to be something for you to do. But what I would recommend is you can Google like inspiring Bible verses or Bible verses to help with X, or right, and scan that list and find something that you feel in your body. Because when you feel it in your body, that's how you know you've accepted something in your mind. It's an emotional situation, right? You'll feel an emotion when you accept it in your mind. So you read it and you find a couple of things. 1 or 2, write them down. You don't have to look at them all day unless that's useful to you. But starting to put that into your brain. And as far as just like reframing your thoughts, you can reframe your thoughts to be anything, that is useful, including something that doesn't make you feel much of anything at all. Like sometimes when I make a decision and I don't like how it turns out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what a horrible choice. A thought that I have is, okay, let's make another one. That doesn't feel great, but it's very like, all right, okay. Very neutral. Now I'm going to make another decision because that is what I do. I make decisions. Eric says, I think with family, I was hyper-focused on serving. With work, I had many failures, and that has messed with my mental state. Yeah. And you have thoughts about what failure means, and you have thoughts about how you created those failures with your decisions, right? But being able to create successes requires looking at the failures, learning from the failures, trying again, inviting failure to come again, essentially. And believing that the failure doesn't mean anything negative about you. It means that you tried something. More questions? Keep them up, you guys. Where am I unclear? Where do you still have questions? I have a few more things that we can talk about, but where did I not answer a question very fully? I was going to go to the God thing. What was I going to say about the God thing? A useful question to ask yourself would be, at the highest level, what does God want from you? Perfect. What does God want from any human being? He gave us, it's useful to remember that he gave us free will for a reason. And that the Bible is full of a lot of people that God was directly talking to, but we don't hear the stories of everybody that he didn't direct because they weren't like intimately involved with the life of Christ. The Bible is about Jesus, right? It's about a people God set aside, gave them all these traditions that all pointed to Jesus so that they would tell the story, and it was very important to them, and it would get us to Jesus, and now Jesus is here for everybody. So there were thousands of people who weren't directly involved with that process, and we don't know if God talked to them once about what they should do with their daily life. Free will is a blessing, but it can be terrifying, right? Like, okay, well, free will is why we have sin. And I actually find that very comforting. I'm tangent time. I think it is impossible for God to have created creatures who could choose without sin being part of that process. And I think it's impossible for us to be able to experience real love without choice. So we have God, who is love, wanting to create beings that were not himself, but could still experience love. And I don't believe that could happen without a choice. And I don't believe the choice can be there without us using it to experience sin and stepping away from God. I would invite you guys to think about what God actually wants from you. And you know that because of what is in the Bible. He's given you, here's what I want. And Jesus summed it up as love God above all else, love your neighbors as yourself. You can go back to that. You can find clarity in that. Is this loving to God? Is this loving to others? Is this loving to myself? That is something that I go back to. When I don't know anything else, I do know those things. I do know that God would like me to glorify him. When we wait until God gives us a sign, I think we are in those cases, like sometimes God gives people signs, but sometimes he doesn't. And one thing that makes me feel a lot better about moving forward without hearing or seeing a sign from God is that when I ask myself if I am willing to do the opposite of what I'm doing, if God were to give me a sign, right? Because if I'm not willing, then I might be closed off to him, right? Then I'm not listening. But if I'm like, yeah, we're going to move across the country, but if you don't want us to do that, that's great. We'll stay here. Like, you let me know. If my heart is open, I feel much better about my decisions. Now, that's coming from me. I can't give you a Bible verse that backs that up specifically, but think about that, right? If you know that you would be listening to God if he were to tell you something else, then you go ahead and you take action. This seems like the best thing, right? But if you don't want me to, I won't. Please tell me. I believe that if you're open to God like that, he's going to tell you. And that is my belief. This is fun, you guys. It's almost the hour. I have a couple more things I'm going to go ahead and talk about. You can leave if you need to. Thank you for being here. I've had a lot of fun with you guys. And obviously there's like a million more things to talk about. The other things I wanted to talk about with clarity is, number one, if the decisions thing is like, oh, this sounds like maybe this is right, but it's going to be hard. I want to also offer you that you can find clarity without making decisions. And you do that by zooming out. So we get very, very in the minutia of our lives, and in this one little tiny thing that we're trying to decide to do, like, how do I how do I do my tasks, right? How do I decide what to do first in the day? I need to do it right. Zoom out until you find, okay, here's what I am clear about. What does God want? God wants me to love. Am I going to love today? I am going to love today. I'm going to make sure of it. Here's how I will do that, right? God wants me to glorify him. Here's how I will do that with this task list. I'm going to trust him with this, right? That's glorifying. Now you're clear about something. What you could just ask yourself, what am I clear about? What do I know? And see what comes up. What was I clear about? This I thought was very, very useful for people with ADHD. Is sometimes I notice I'm clear when I'm appropriately stimulated. Got caffeine, for some of you medication. I'm in the right environment. I'm doing the right things to be stimulated enough that I can easily find clarity. But I'll be like super clear on a blog post yesterday, and then I sit down to write it, and I'm like, where did it all go? I don't know what I'm talking about. So I go back to why I was so excited. Like, what was so exciting about this yesterday? I have to go back to where I was clear so that I can get clear enough to do it now. But I'll also, like, if I'm in the wrong environment, like, let's set this up so that we can think. Where do you think well? What environment? What parameters? Music? Like, what are the things that you need to think well? If you don't know that, that should be your next step. Is to think about, when do I actually have some really good ideas? Shower. A lot of us think super well in the shower. A lot of us get really clear in the shower. And you may not even have to go get in the shower to find that clarity. You just remember the last time, like, think about the last time you were shower, or like visualize yourself in the shower with the water, nothing else to do, and see what comes up for you. Airplanes, bathtubs, and the elliptical. Yeah. Perfect. I love that. The other thing that you can be clear about at any time is, what is your next step? What is my next step? This also gives me a lot of comfort about the future. Anyone with anxiety, is that I know that I always know my next step. Always. Because my next step is always going to be get some awareness about what's going on, and then either make a decision, ask for help, or something I want to offer to you guys, or spend some pressure-free time in what I call JPT. Pressure-free JPT, journal, prayer, think. So set aside time that's not for anything else, that I will do those three things together, because why would I think without including God in that process? I don't know. I don't see the reason for that. So anytime I think, God's there. And when I write, it helps me think better. Doesn't help everybody, but for me, writing does. If you like to speak your thoughts, Recording yourself on your phone, you guys, and then listening back to yourself will be a life changer. Like, do it every single day. Just talk to yourself on your phone and then listen. Because that's like, you get your ideas out, you put them back in a different way, and it changes things. So that's how you can find clarity, is you zoom out to some of these bigger things, your higher values, what you know already, where you were clear. You find that clarity and you move forward from there. So get out of this confusing mess that you're in and go back, go bigger. That's a way to find it. Instead of making the decision, you can always go back to where you were clear. Do I want to go into this? I think this is probably another time. Oh, no, maybe we address this real quick. So some of the decisions that I believe you need to make if you're going to have a life filled with the kind of actions that you can then evaluate and actually build on, you need to decide what you want, why you want it, how much it is worth, who is responsible for it. A lot of us have not decided that it is our job to get what we want, and when you will start. The word, like the question of how, is not in there, because you don't need to know how you'll get something accomplished. What you need to do is make an arbitrary choice, act on it, and then adjust from there. That is how we'd figure out the how. But so many of, like in the ADHD community, we have been either shamed by others or by ourselves into not experimenting, not letting ourselves do the natural things that we need to do in order to move forward. You don't need to know the how. You do need to know what, so that you have a direction. You do need to know why, so that it matters. You need to know how much it is worth, which again is going to be a lot of these are arbitrary decisions. You just decide. You know that if it turns out poorly, you're going to get something from the experience. I will evaluate this. I will move forward. I will not shame myself, because first off, that is ridiculous. Can't get better unless I start to make these decisions. Decide, evaluate. Clarity comes with those things. Progress comes with those things.